Oh, that camera position. What happened there? All right. Turn on the logo. Sheesh. Let's do blue today. Come on. Blue. There we go. You gotta do the whole hand motion while you're hitting the remote. Okay, welcome to today's scream. Welcome to today's scream session, everyone. Ah, man, life. A job, 9 to 5. Projects people hit me up for that I agreed to because they're fucking awesome. And then coming on to do my own project. It's a lot. It's a lot. But time management is making it happen. I am as prepared as I can be right now. So here we go. We're going to get right into it. I have some mocked up or sketched out storyboarded pages to get through. So I'm just going to start throwing things together. If you've been keeping up with the latest streams, I'm planning on just mocking up all of my pages for the comic book. And then I'm going to come back and refine them over and over and over again. But, you know, at the point at which I am, I think it's better to just kind of get out these graphics, start finessing the story a little bit better so everything's mapped out correctly. And yeah, later kind of revisiting each frame by frame and making it really tell that story. But yeah, I think just getting each thing perfect as I go is not a smart way to go about it. I think it's smarter to just kind of take a rough pass of the whole thing and then finesse things once I have the whole big picture laid out. So here we go. Switch screens. I really need to get a new mouse for my streaming computer because the battery just decided to stop working, and so I have I have it on this short little charger on the off onto the side. Okay. So the scene and the storyboard. So I'm gonna pull up the app, like an AirPlay, and I need to get the iPad real quick. I don't even need. Why am I wearing? I was gonna call. That's why I'm wearing headphones. Here it is. Oh, I forgot to. Someone told me there's like a great channel where there's free copyright free use music, lo-fi beats that I can play in the background. I gotta start bringing music into this in case I'm just quiet. Uh, or so I can just get viewers for the music. That'd be great. Turn this into a whole lo-fi channel with Blender in the background. Huh? Okay. So let's AirPlay to the screen so you're not just looking at the name from my laptop and give people a chance to hack me. This app is amazing. I remember when I first got the iPad, I was looking for a way to AirPlay to the laptop screen, and there was like one option that I had to pay for. I paid $9 for it, and it sucked. It just never really quite worked. And now there's like a ton of apps for it, and this one works great, reliable. All right, here we are. So, kind of mocked up this sequence. I don't really have the models set up for that initial panels, but it's so simple and abstract. I'm not too worried about it. We're gonna move on. But I want to. That was an ugly pencil streak I just added. Flip over the page. This is the sequence I want to focus on. So it's more of like an interior with the character. I have yet to figure out how to get my metahuman into Blender. I mean, there's a bunch of tutorials out there. It's just a matter of me doing the tutorial. But, you know, in this scene, what I actually have, if I start showing what I have, is mannequins. Boom. There's my character for now. Let's see if I remember correctly. The pose menu. So if I hit tab on this, no, not edit mode. There should be, yeah, if I hit the armature for the person, if ever you download a person with an armature, you can then get into pose mode. And in pose positions right here, do I just click here? Man, I need a refresher on some of this stuff. This program is just so massive And I did so many tutorials for so many different things. Rest position. Is that it? No, pose position. If I turn this layer. There was like some other pose that this armature had. But it's not switching to it. If I hit A. Can I just... Yeah, I can just move it. However, A... I can just move it, but I'm gonna just brute force this to mock it up because again, it's like once I really get into the character stuff, I just gotta dive in phase by phase. Because again, it's like I focused my learning of the software, my practice to the software to ArcViz, architectural visualization, product renders and such like that, things like that. Even though, you know, I did do some character animations here and there. I did do some rigging, camera tracking, and all that, but it's like I just need to kind of focus on different aspects to relearn these different parts of it. I'm also just 3 years into using Blender, by the way, if in case anyone was curious. So let's start bringing back the entire scene. So we got the warehouse, we got the studio room, we got a bunch of walls in here, we got some furniture, so like chairs. We got a bunch of plants. We got the island underneath. All neatly organized. We got a couch. I think besides the mannequin and the plants, by the way, I have model and the computer. There's like some things, light fixtures. It's like some things I used as assets that I either bought or they were available for free. And a lot of it has been just built by me. So no shame in downloading things that are already existing if they are the right things to be used. Let's see. What else do I need to bring back? This wall doesn't look right. However, I can't quite select it for whatever reason. I think that was part of the studio space. Yeah, that's gone. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to keep the letters up there either. That was just for like some sort of like self-branding image shot that I was doing. All right, I'm gonna save this. I think I brought everything back pretty much. I got some more ivies growing around. I don't think I really want that. Okay, and then something I'm gonna need to bring in to mock this up because I mean, first of all, it's just the character sitting at the desk. The character gets a call from somebody. He's like working on some 3D stuff, right? I said it was a meta type of project. And he gets a call, and as he's got this thing, he's like, hey, we need this yesterday, even though we told you you had time to work on it. It's like, well, it's not ready. Well, get it ready. Sound familiar? So that's basically the opening sequence, although I am looking to have the conversation be a bit more intriguing than that and reveal the relationship between the characters. You know, not just like say what's going on, but actually, you know, communicate the personality and the relationship that these two characters will have. The person calling and the main character here who is developing parts for a digital vehicle, you know. For now, I'm just going to keep this into software stuff, like workflow things, and we can get into the more nitty gritty of the story once I have them more fleshed out. I do have, you know, a lot of it sort of worked out conceptually, but there's, you know, a lot of intricacies or like details and a lot of narrative stuff I sort of just need to dive into for a little while to get right. So I don't really want to talk too much about that until I get it right. So where is mannequin? Mannequin geometry. Select objects. All right, so that's both of them. I'm just going to delete one of them. So these two armatures, I only need one. I'm going to just delete the ones that say 001. Okay, so we have this guy. What is, this is an empty. I can do without that. Mannequin 001, I can do without that. Where's the model for this one? Ah. Armature, mannequin. There he is. I can't move him away from the armature. Oh, I gotta get out of pose mode. back into object mode. There we go. So if I move the mannequin and unlink it from the pose, that's not ideal. I would want to have them move together. So I'm going to make sure to select the whole hierarchy and move him up because we got him sitting at the desk for the opening sequence. So just GZ to move him up. We go into wireframe right here so I can move him over to the desk. Cool. Now, I'm hoping that I can change his pose to sitting. If I could do that, that would be great. If not, I'll just mock him up normally. So, not edit mode, but pose mode. There we are. So that if I move this bone, everything's kind of moving together. That's fine. Just bring him over to the desk. Come on now. Go into Y and wireframe. Move him over right there at the table. Okay. There we go. So for some reason, the origin to my mannequin is, oh, it's moving in reference to the 3D cursor. So perhaps if I move the 3D cursor to the hip right there. Aha, much better. So let's pick the knee. Oh, that's not what I want. Or let's rotate this. Yeah, apparently this armature isn't working as intended. So maybe if I bend this, and then I select these two and rotate them. There we are. Fake it till you make it. If I look at this in solid mode, don't judge me right now. Again, this is all mock-up. This is all rough. I'm just storyboarding from the sketches that I have on the iPad. Is that still showing? No. Onto this. So let's also rotate this leg. There we are. Move that over. Move it down. Okay. Now let's reconnect everything together. So if I move this, okay, everything moves together. So I gotta select the thigh bones, move them up. So they're sort of repositioned with the hip there. And now I can grab the hip bone, push them all down. All right, now he's sitting more accurately. Cool, that's good enough. Now I'm gonna just see if I can move his arms. There we go. Still moving based off of the 3D cursor. Maybe if I hit, ooh, that's not what I meant to do. If I hit N, tools, nope. Also, if anybody, well, we got one viewer right now, but if you viewer, anybody else that jumps in, I mean, I'll have to repeat myself if anybody else jumps in. But if I am doing something in the wrong way, which clearly I'm not doing it in the best way, but I'm just doing it in an efficient way for what I'm trying to accomplish right now, please enlighten me. Moving the arm down. Okay. Nice. It's not bad. There we are. And then maybe rotate the hand a little bit. Not like that. Or like that. There we go. Z, boom. It looks like he's reaching for the mouse, right? Okay. The chair's not even centered to the computer. Come on now. So the chair should have an origin because I made the chair. And I see it here. I'm trying to click on it. So not an origin, but an empty, rather. I'd have to get out of pose mode to move everything together. So let me just finish posing him. Maybe I move this bone instead. That's moving the shoulder joint as well. So maybe if I just like set the 3D cursor there. No, that's still jink. But maybe at the shoulder. Nope. That's gonna have to do it. Move it that way, move it this way. And let's just put this arm down. and see if we can't lean it against the desk. Okay. There we go. It's not bad. We got him sitting. Let's see. Compared to the storyboard, gotta reconnect this. Guess I gotta make sure my iPad screen doesn't come off, just so I can keep referencing back to my storyboard. So yeah, we got a shot of him looking back, right? This is after we've entered through the whole space. The camera kind of comes into this work area and we zoom in on the character, and then that's where it starts interacting, right? So I'm gonna get out of pose mode now, back into object mode. And I'll select the mannequin, I'll select the armature, and I will select, is this the origin? No, that's the origin for the desk, or the empty. I keep calling it the origin, but it's an empty. It's really just like, as you can see, it's like sort of this thing that points in all kinds of different directions. And it actually has, you know, all of the different components of this chair tied to that one object. And this is because the model was done properly in a different Blender file and then brought into this one, right? So real efficient way of working. You build out these individual components in their own file, and then you bring them over into this master file where you can manipulate them easier or compose them together, right? You can't really do specific edits to them when they're all put in here, but you can move them as a single component, which makes life easy and smooth. Okay. So this whole computer is one mess of a thing. So I'm going to hit tab, go into wireframe so I can select the entire keyboard and do proportional editing. We went over this in a previous stream, so that if I move this keyboard, the wire isn't just going to like cut off over to the side. So I'm going to do this from the top view, and then G, I can kind of see where the mannequin's hands are. So everything's moving together because my radius for the proportional editing is too large. So what I'm doing right now is I'm scrolling on my mouse and killing my computer in the process. Everything's working so slow because this keyboard is just so high detail. Trying to get the sphere, right, the selection circle of how everything moves together to be smaller. But I'm going to have to zoom out because clearly, for whatever reason, the proportional editing circle is way too big. And now I'm frozen, waiting for this to unlock. There we go. So if I zoom out and I start moving it around from way out here, I got to wait another second for it to load. I still don't see my range for the cursor. Jeez. What was I editing that I had such a large work area? If I go way, way out. Huh. Now I'm starting to suspect something is wrong. Well, who cares? The keyboard could be there. Why can't he be left-handed, huh? Why can't we just move the mouse over to the left and have him be left-handed? Oh, turn off proportional editing. There we go. In fact, you know what? He's an underdog. We're going to make him left-handed. Because I don't know why I'm proportionally editing the entire world right now. All right. Go back into, go back into solid mode. There we go. Okay. We're getting closer. Let's find my cameras so that I can start setting this up. So here's my aerial camera for my opening sequence. So let's see. This camera is like way out here for whatever reasons. I had an animation set up with it. Here's another camera. Here's a camera zoomed in. Here's a camera with an animation also pointing to clouds. Okay, we got a camera pointing here. That's a nice shot. I like that. I just don't want to use a camera that has a valid shot. So I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate one of these. That'll make it easy for me to reach my target. So camera M, Shift D, and then name it camera, give it a letter, okay, and we'll call it camera for SQ sequence, and this would be my sequence 3 out of all the frames that I'm doing. Okay, move it up. This is where splitting makes this easy because I can move the camera in 3D. Just position it where I know it should go in the 3D space. And then once I start getting close, look at what the camera's actually seeing. Nice. Let's make it, that's not bad. That's pretty dang close to what I had set up over here. Cool. So the next thing would be to set up some elements that for now would just represent screens, right? Later, when I have the story more fleshed out, what these screens would contain, what they would show, would be more focused in or more specific. You see what I'm talking about? I got to go back to my storyboard. So he's kind of sitting in front of the computer, what we see as the computer right now, but I'm actually going to have this be a bit more futuristic and not as practical. Oops. I crashed the software. Not everything's perfect. It's starting to connect. There we are. Okay. So we got the guy sitting there, and he's got these like floating screens. That's what all these colors are, right? So he's got like a model up here of the vehicle. He's got some probably a very interactive chat on the right hand side. Thank you, EM, for watching and for always commenting. I guess you'll be back. I guess that's what that means. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, other screens, maybe like a task manager, maybe a calendar, you know, such and such. Then what happens is he gets a call, right? A call pops up, and then we get another angle and we see what's in front of him, right? He's got this like 3D model that he's tweaking, like a very specific part that is shown as a hologram. So I'm just going to start mocking up all these in a own collection in Blender as the desk elements or the work elements. So we got our camera here. Let's make this a bit more wide angle. So at 35 millimeter, we get a bit more of the scene, and we can center the character. Maybe even a bit more wide angle. Let's go 24. Yeah. That matches the storyboard a bit better, right? So we fit all that into the frame. And then we punch in, right? Once he gets the call, we'll punch in the camera. And I'll use frames to do this. So my starting frame will be 0, because that's where you start from. It is 0. Click over here. I have a bunch of things animated in this file. Honestly, I should have probably cleaned up this file out of all of the unnecessaries for the mockup. There's a bunch of cameras flying around. There's like wind affecting some of the trees and such. But, you know, it's working now, so we'll roll with it. Okay, so we got our camera set up here, and I'm going to have the different elements of the camera switch. And I'll just space, it's kind of arbitrary because it's a comic book. Like I don't have to worry too much about the camera movements. I just want to space them out in a way that makes sense to me. So I'll space them out 10 keyframes apart. So I know that every 10 keyframes, I have a different shot for the comic book. So right here, I'm at 0. This is my initial shot. I'll go over here to the object properties and I'll lock in or keyframe my location for the camera, my angles for the camera, my focal length for the camera, and my depth of field. So in order to see what my depth of field is doing, which can help me a lot to kind of blur background and bring more things into focus and show depth in the different frames, I will go over here and drop down this preview and turn on depth of field so I can see the depth of field that the camera has. So now I can mess with the depth of field here, the distance. There we are. And so if the distance is really, really small, obviously everything's out of focus. And if I start punching it in and I zoom in, I can make sure that I get the main character in focus and catch some of the things on the desk in focus. And then things in the background will be out of focus. All right. Maybe I can also mess with the f-stop. So I'll actually bring the f-stop down. There we are. So that even the stairs are slightly out of focus. So right now my character, I mess with the distance now again. There we go. My character seems to be in full focus. My f-stop is at 2.1, which is very shallow. I can turn it down even more. There we are. Perfect. So my character's in focus. Those steps are slightly out of focus. Depth is reading really well in this scene. I'll go ahead and save that. Then I'm going to go to my next frame. So my next frame is kind of like an over-the-shoulder shot. To the character. So I'll move over 10 frames, click over here, use my 3D view in wireframe to kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm going to turn off all my trees because I know they're there. They're where they're supposed to be. There we are. Plugin, shout out to the plugin Botanique. And the island is also getting distracting. So let me hide the island underneath. They'll show up in the renders later, but I just don't need to see them right now. So in 10 frames, I'm going to punch into an over-the-shoulder shot right here. Switch to the side and move that kind of up. I still want to see some of the back of the chair. So I'm going to move the camera back a little bit, and I'm going to change the focal length here as well. So I'm going to punch this back into a 35 millimeter. Awesome. Use the rule of thirds. Put the character over onto the right. There we go. Follow those camera lines to get a nice little composition going. Cool. That's my next shot. So keyframe the focal length and keyframe all the camera positions. And I didn't do much to the camera rotation, but that's fine. I can finesse this later. Okay, keyframe number 20. Next shot. We move a bit higher. We rotate a little bit around the character. I'm waiting for a specific moment to reveal a bit more of the character. Like we're still just sort of seeing the character from behind. Rotating down so we can see what he's working on as he answers the call of duty. Still following rule of thirds, so we'll keep him there, and we can see we can take a good look at what he's working on and who he's talking to on the call. Awesome. Okay, now keyframe all those new positions. And we kept the same focal length. I'll just go ahead and keyframe that anyway. All right. Next shot, we're going to go off to the side. So we'll move over another 10 frames. Move the camera over here. RZ. So I can rotate and we can get a nice side shot. So we reveal a bit more of the character again. And in this one, we'll see a bit more of the background, or a bit more of the composition of the environment that he is in. Nice. Maybe just keep the... Well, I'm probably going to end up cropping this in the book so that over on the left side of the panel crops into the edge of this wall. So I'm fine with how this is right now because I can always resize the panels to crop in nicely. What we got going on here. And I want this shot to actually be much more zoomed in. So I'm going to maybe take it over 50 and even to like 80. So that means I got to punch the camera back. Rotate it. There we go. And we're getting into a bit of an issue here, which is that we have a wall in the way. So question now is like, do I want to keep the wall as part of the design? Yeah, I absolutely do. I can scale down the camera, which isn't ideal, but it's going to help me here. Because if I can scale down the camera, I can then move it back again and have it be placed in front of that wall and get the shot that I want. There we go. Right in front of the wall. 80 was way too much. I'll bring it down to 50. Perfect. GZ right there. Angle it back up. So we get a nice side shot of what he's working on. We finally see a bit more of the character. And yeah, nice. What happened to my computer? I think my computer was in some reason my computer and my lights are in the same collection as my plants, but that's fine. I just need that to show up at the end. I know it's there. Okay, we got that side shot. Keyframe the focal length, keyframe all the positions, everything that changes is in orange. And we'll move over another 10 frames. Now we really punch in on what he's working on at a side shot of what it is. So kind of just center the camera to what it is that he's working on, and it's just going to be a punch zoom. So now we might go to 80 or even 100. Yeah, and move that up. You might be saying to yourself, hey, everything's blurry and out of focus. You haven't been tweaking that. No, because I just want to set the positions, and then I will come back and make sure that the focuses are also changing, the depth of field, because I did keyframe that in the beginning, but you know, I just want to make sure I get each frame set up correctly. All right, now we actually shift over to the other side of the character. We don't cross over to see the front of the character. There's a cinematic rule for that. I think it's the 180 rule, where you kind of don't break. If this is a line right here through the scene, this horizontal line, we don't want to break that 180 line. So go ahead and rotate over to the other side. Oh no, not that far. We're going to go right here. Boom. So we see the right side of the character and we zoom in on his calendar. That's really what's happening in this scene. I'm going to go back down into 50. Kind of back into like an over the shoulder shot a little bit. Perfect. Bring it back more into center. We don't need that much into the frame. And maybe a bit lower. Nice. Show a bit of the chair details. And have the camera or the calendar sort of show up on the right third of the shot here. All right, so we keyframe the focal length and the new camera positions. Boom. Now I can go back to 0. Keyframe 0. And everything is in focus here. I'll go to my camera settings so that, oh, I'd never keyframed the distance or the f-stop. But I'll go ahead and keyframe those now. So keyframe the f-stop, keyframe the distance, move over 10 frames. Nice. Or not nice. This isn't the shot I wanted. Did I forget to keyframe the focal length or the camera position? Strange. Well, either way, I'm gonna go ahead and, yeah, that's not the shot I wanted. We'll just go ahead and rotate the camera, move it up, rotate it. Oh, you know what? I might have just not keyframed the rotations, and then it averaged out with the next keyframes that I created. That's fine. I'll just fix it here. And now re-keyframe all these, have them show up as yellow, which means we're now good. And now I can change the focal distance. I'm not going to change the f-stop unless I need to. I'm going to focus on just changing the focal distance. There we go. So now the character's back in focus. Keyframe those. Move over another 10 frames. This shot is what we wanted. So now I got to change the focal distance so that the desk, I'm going to focus in on what's going on the desk. So I'm just going to make sure that this edge of the desk is in focus. And I want to keep that focus between the edge of the desk and the hands of the character. That's where the action, where the good stuff is happening in this frame. So we'll tweak the focal distance there so we get a nice sharp edge right there. The hand is not in focus, so this is an instance where I'm going to yeah, actually, yeah, that looks like a good balance. The hand is pretty well in focus, and the edge of the desk is not. So I'm going to just enlarge the f-stop just a little bit. There we go. So the edge of this table is still out of focus. So the center of the table and the hands are in focus. That's perfect. We'll move over another 10 frames. Very tedious, I know, right? The hypercut of this is going to look great, though. We're at frame 30. And we're almost well in focus. I want to make sure both of the hands are in focus here. So just tweak that focus distance again. That is a good balance right there. Very nice. Keyframe that. Keyframe the f-stop so it remains constant. Another 10 frames over. And what is going on here? My camera is totally messed up. I must have not keyframed the rotation of the camera. So I'll just go ahead and reset this view. What was my frame 40? If I had frame 30 at the side. Oh, that's strange that did that. Let's go to frame 40. I want to bring that here. This is where I punch in on the object, and it's not just a side view. There we go. So that we see the object fully there. We'll bring the hands in focus because that's our reference in the spacing right here for the distance from the camera. There we go. Keyframe that, keyframe that, keyframe that, I guess. Keyframe all this stuff that's in orange. Okay, now we go back to frame 50. And that's all well and good. Yeah, no changes here. Okay, save. Let's take it back one more time. 0. Give it a second. Looks good. We're in focus. Our composition is proper. Go to keyframe 10. And we're good and set. I actually think I don't want to focus on the character. I want to focus on the edge of the desk where the screens will be. So I'm actually going to move the focus distance further away, and the character is going to be just slightly out of focus, and then re-keyframe that. Keyframe number 20. Perfect. Right? Yep. Keyframe number 30. Perfect. Keyframe number 40. Let's see if it's fixed. Perfect. And finally, keyframe number 50. We're set. All right. All of our camera views are mocked up. So, just to wrap, I'm going to quickly make some objects here. So, introduce an origin point, introduce a plane, rotate it 90, GZ up. I don't think I need to hide my plans on my computer anymore. So I can bring this floating screen over here, move it up, resize it a bit to be like a longer screen like that. Cool. And I am going to create a material for it. And that material is going to be an emissive material. Just going to make it look like a screen, like a blue that's giving off a little bit of light, you know, just to mock this up. And then Shift D to copy it over. Create a copy of that material and just change the color to like an orange. There we are. Make that one much, much smaller. That could be the calendar. I know what's going on. At some point, I had set things to scale and rotate according to the origin of the model. Don't remember why or when I did that, but I'm sure that's a quick fix. But for now, it's not getting in the way. All right, this is where this communications might be. So we'll keep that panel and we'll put it behind. We'll duplicate that, and we'll make this one like a green tint. Cool. Alrighty. That's really it. That's how I want to mock this up. This call then comes in here. And maybe what I'll do is add in some cylinder objects to mock up the hologram of the model that he's working on. So we'll bring up cylinder, rotate it, scale it down quite a bit. I had envisioned it, you know, completely flat, but maybe... No, I want to keep it flat. There we go. Stretch that. Duplicate, escape, scale. Move it down. And quickly, before I forget, select everything I've made so far for these parts. The model, and make its own collection for desk items mockup. Sweet. Go back into wireframe. We're really speeding through this. Okay. Nice. And all this will obviously later get replaced. Maybe it should be smaller so that it actually looks like it's coming out of the screen. Yeah, it could be even partially in the screen. Decisions to be made later. I'll place this right there. That'll be fine. And then just create some toruses. So I'm going to select right here, mesh, torus, scale it down. You know, I should have made it thinner. I'm going to add it again, Shift A, mesh, torus, open up this menu here, reference from the top view, and just make the inner radius smaller. There it goes. Scale that in, rotate that 90, rotate it another 90, and have it just kind of fit through there. So this is emulating some sort of virtual fantasy car part that's gonna function as some sort of turbo. Perfect. Okay. Desk items mockup. Are you all part of this collection as well? No, so make sure that it is. With M, so we can move things into collections or into new collections. All right, and now we will select the toruses and the cylinders. Create a new material for those. And just enlarge this real quick. At this point, I should see what I am doing. So I'm gonna set this to rendered view at very, very low quality so I can keep some efficiency going. Should have turned off a lot more in the scene. Maybe the clouds and other things in the background, but it's fine. It's looking pretty great. Okay, we'll switch this from the timeline into the shader editor. And we'll delete the principled BSDF because I want to mix a emission shader and a translucent or transparent. Let's try translucent. And I want to mix these two with a mix shader. Plug these two in and plug that into the shader so that it's not translucent right now. Let's see, Control Shift click to view just one of them. So and perhaps I'd like to hit Control L and link materials so that I am in fact looking at this material on all of these. Okay, so I don't think I want translucent. I think I want transparent. Let's go ahead and set transparent. Yeah, so there we go. It's fully transparent. And the more gray it turns, it's, you know, more seeable. More seeable. And I'll just create a random texture. Let's see what kind of textures we can use. We could use a Let's use a checker texture. So I can make a checker pattern and plug that into my translucency. So you can see like we have a cool little effect going on here. Make that fully, not fully, but almost fully translucent. And then bring this one much darker. So it's less translucent. Cool. And then emission, we're going to have it glowing a light blue. So if I now plug these two in together. Okay, not quite. I think I want the color to also relate to the checker texture. Nope, that's not right. You know, the checker texture should probably be factoring into the way that it shades into each other. Yeah, something like that. And maybe change the scale, make it a lot smaller, more detailed. And possibly even, maybe I'll use the checker texture for the mix shader, but then for the actual transparency, I'll use a wave texture. And just kind of mixing and matching these so that I get some cool randomized effects. There we go. Maybe have that match also into the emission strength. Okay. Yeah, I might be thinking too much about this, but I'm gonna also use a math component between the factor and emission, and I'm gonna hit multiply so that I can make the emission stronger and also keep that. There we go. Nice. So the design of that actual component can change later on. So now that I have that material mocked up and he's clearly working on some trippy thing, we'll go into the timeline. We'll go back to 0. Give that a moment. It has to move around. And it has to think. We'll get rid of one of the views. And we'll go into our camera view. All right, so there is our initial camera shot. Right, where we're mocking this up. I think perhaps my emission material here is too blown out. I'm going to bring down the intensity of those screens. Say 2. And I'm going to make the base color also match what their emission color is. Maybe down even lower. 1, I suppose. It gives off sunlight, but it keeps some color. Same thing here. Bring that back down to 1. Maybe just saturate it more. Yeah, that's what I should do with the emission. It's just saturate it all the way so it doesn't blow out as easy. And then kick up the intensity. I'm going to move this over more to the side. There it goes. 5 and 5. I can get a bit more light and a bit less color off of those screens. And now the computer screen is actually not as bright as the other ones. So I'm going to actually look for the display material that is set on that computer. See if it has an emission value in the shader editor. It does not. What the heck? That's not a great screen if it has no light. Oh, it does. It just went about it. Kind of weird. That's fine. Just bring that up. It gives off some light. Okay. And there we are. I might even do this. Maybe like exporting like this. We'll give that a moment. I'm going to start logging off because we got these all mocked up. And so we can export these out into a folder. You might as well drop them into the comic book page we have mocked up for this scene, right? So I'll wait these materials for them to load in. And it's going to take a little bit to render out all these frames. And I don't want to just sit here talking as my computer just renders. So what I'm going to do is once this loads in, it's taking a little bit. My computer's hyperventilating. It's just calculating all the Well, it's bringing up all the materials, not for rendering, but for previewing. Oh, Heavy Lux. I just saw your chat. Sorry if I'm late. What am I working on? So this is a comic book that I'm working on. It's ooh, I think I might have hit play by accident. It's a comic book, and it's kind of like a meta story. But the purpose of today's session is I'm going through some of the frames that I storyboarded. So we can actually, now that we see that this is running pretty smoothly, to recap for those of you that have just joined in recently, I will bring up the storyboard here on my iPad that I am basing these images on. So once this loads in just a second, I had these different frames set up for the second page of the comic book. So I have this piece out here where we kind of introduce the character and we introduce his work area. And then he gets a call from somebody. We reveal who he's talking to and what he's working on. And we reveal a bit more of the characters, what it is that he's working on, their relationship to each other. You know, your typical creative thing, right? It's like, hey, how's that going? It's like, great, we're on track. It's like, oh, by the way, we didn't tell you, but we need this yesterday. It's like, well, that's great because you're not going to have it till this day. Well, get on it. Sound familiar? But yeah, as I work out the story a little bit better, it will obviously have much better conversation. But as it is right now, we're getting into a good spot. I will now go to the timeline, and rather than render these out fully, because as I said, that's going to take a little bit of time, I am actually going to hit export some previews out of this preview mode that we have here, the material ID preview, and then drop these into InDesign. So in order to do that, I'll go over here to view, and I will do viewport render image, and that'll just toss out what we're looking at here in the resolution that I have set, which is not sufficient because I was rendering. And so I turned this down to 20%. So we'll bring this up back to 100. And now we'll go ahead and do view, viewport render image, give that a moment. And there we go. It's a nice little mock-up. We'll save that into today's session folder, which I'll have to create here with today's date, which is the 24th. I can't believe January is almost over. We're almost 1/12 of the way through 2023. Isn't that crazy? The pandemic. I keep blaming it on the pandemic. The pandemic has distorted my sense of time. How many times have you heard that? All right. And then we'll jump over. So I had created these spaced out 10 frames at a time. So I'll move over 10 frames so we can get our next shot out. There we go. Very nice. View, viewport render image. Give that another moment. There we go. Nice. Save. That's number 2 on the page. Then we jump another 10 frames. By the way, for those of you that just tuned in, this is all mock-ups, right? So my idea is to kind of get through all the visuals that I have in mind for the story. I have like an outline to the story. So I'm putting out these visuals so I can start developing the writing and the conversation and the sort of plot line a bit better. And once I have those story elements more fleshed out and I have all the visuals laid out, I got my 30, 40 pages out, I can then redo or finesse all the different frames throughout the whole story. So we got here render image. Oops, I hit render. Well, on this one, we'll see the full effect. Because I think like the tedious act of having to go 10 frames at a time had us lose some people. But you know, that's what the deliverable is. So we'll see what one of these frames actually looks like for this one. And we'll have that dropped into the InDesign. I hope, I'm going to save. And hope that as this renders, it's not going to be an issue for me to start opening the InDesign file. There we go. So we save the Blender in case we do crash. We got it right here. Spread 1 mockup. And, oh, system is out of GPU memory. Sorry, we're not going to be able to see the render until, oh, here I am hitting render again. We're not going to be able to see the full on render until I optimize for this scene or reset. When I run out of GPU memory, it might just be because I open the InDesign, or it might just be because I also just have a lot taking up the RAM right now. There we go. We have this shot. Save it. Number 4. And we'll jump another 10 frames. Give that a moment. Boom. We got our zoom in. That's out of focus. So I'm actually going to go into my camera. Even though I tailored it to the hands, now that I have the floating object there, I'm not just going to refocus, but I'm also going to slightly tweak the camera. Nice. Awesome. And I can go over here and tweak the focal distance so that, ooh, that object is going to look nice rendered out. We got that. And then all these orange ones got to change to yellow. Perfect. Save again in case we crash. Viewport, render image. Nice. Number 5. And our final one, number 6, because we got 6 panels per page. And that's a whole page mocked up within an hour, and even some little mock-ups created, all based off of little sketches. So this is what it takes to do a work like this. It's a lot of planning, it's a lot of mock-ups, and it's a lot of finessing that gets done later. So next time you see an animated movie, just think what it'd be like to generate 30 pages of these kind of images and then also have them moving. No wonder Spider-Verse took 4 years and Avatar took however many. All right, so we got our 6 frames out. Let's close Blender. So we're done for it for today. Not really. We're done for it for the stream, but I'm going to come back and actually render those out for the page. But for the sake of showing you, because rendering out each one of those frames would require me to dedicate my laptop to that task. Let's get this page filled with our images. So we'll go to today's date. Here we go. We got frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, and 4, 5, 6. And now we just start positioning them as I had in the storyboard. So we go over here, blow that up. And if you're wondering how I set up this InDesign file, you can check out yesterday's stream where I did that. There we go. And for those of you that are watching and don't know, I do clip these later and make smaller videos out of it. So you can always watch out for those to get the highlights if you miss anything. So here I want to look over the left side of the shoulder of the character. Very nice. Bring that size down. I don't know why it's so big. Okay. These chat bubbles are going to need to get a lot smaller, which means that my font, hopefully my font doesn't need to get smaller. But also, you know, this is a good point that I brought up in the last stream that is very evident now, which is that mocking this up quickly also shows me where the chat bubbles are supposed to go, right? I don't want to spend unnecessary amounts of time doing all these details and preparing all these scenes only to get it covered up by some text. So this also helps me focus on where I should be putting the details for each shot and the overall composition. So which is why we mock things up very quickly, very roughly. It's not the most impressive thing out there, but it does serve a very important purpose for it to look great later on. That's the whole thing about doing this. I want to get this project done. I want to keep myself accountable, streaming it, getting some feedback, hopefully. Oops. But also just showing that, it's not as glamorous as it may seem for some of the pros. All those pros that you see out there, just churning out great work. There's a hell of a lot of pre-planning and things that go into, and a whole lot of like hours put in to get that whole experience put together. We got a whole spread mocked up, which is great. If I'm able to get another spread done before the end of the month, I am in a pretty good track. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for joining on today's stream. I appreciate the views. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you all interacting in the chat. Tomorrow, I'm back on at 8 for another hour. What I will be doing, the next page, because I got that storyboarded. We can do a little preview of that. I'll just show this while I pull that up. But yeah, the next scene introduces another character, right? These two characters sort of hang up on the next page. And then as the main character goes on to do something else, gets another call from another character, and we introduce arguably one of the most important and iconic pieces out of this work, which is the vehicle that is going to make part of the story. I need to restart my little thing here so I can show to it. Starting receiver. If you don't know, this AirPlay screen mirroring receiver app is awesome. If those of you watching are just joining or have joined recently, I've been bringing it up all the time, but every once in a while when my iPad shuts off, I got to reset this. Yeah, I'm just going to cut it there. You'll get to see the page if you tune into tomorrow's stream because I was unable to connect right now. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to close it out here. More tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Till tomorrow.